o'clock, and I think it's time for us to make a start and say welcome to this meeting of full meeting of Hampshire Fire and Rescue Authority. Can I first of all say welcome to those of our firefighters and indeed the public who are watching us today on live stream. This is the first time this has happened, and we don't know how long the meeting will last, but we hope everybody will stay with us. Not sure what that was. Before we start our meeting, I think it appropriate I just make a very short statement about what happened. Some of you may have seen on the news last night an incident that occurred at Didcot Power Station. And you're already aware of the tragic events that occurred at Didcot Power Station following partial collapse of the building yesterday afternoon. Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service are supporting Oxfordshire Fire and Rescue Service with specialist urban rescue team, and rescue dog teams have been deployed. Clearly our thoughts are with the friends and families of those who have been confirmed and injured, and indeed one we know has been killed, and some are still missing, unaccounted for. So certainly our thoughts are with those. We will get a further update on that situation when we come to our activity report later on our agenda. So, one or two just administrative announcements. I did just welcome people to the live streaming of this event, but I need to remind everybody that the meeting may be recorded or reported, and any of you who remain at the meeting after this announcement will be deemed to have consented to the broadcast of their image and anything that you say. We're not anticipating any fire here today. No fire drill. If the alarm goes off, I assume it would be a live incident. We've got massive doors on either side of us. I'm sure the fire officers here will open the doors and we'll follow them exiting the building. Any of you that may want to use the facilities, they are at the end of the room there, clearly signed. Can I remind you all to check your mobile phones, please? Please turn them off or turn them to silence for the duration of this meeting. Right, turning to your agenda, apologies for absence. My agenda does say none, but I understand that we have now received apology from Councillor Benison, who has sadly sustained an accident and is currently at hospital having treatment on one of his eyes. So that is disturbing news, and we obviously wish him well. Are there any other apologies? Nope, fine, thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. Right, well, first of all, to enable members to disclose to the meeting any disclosable pecuniary interest they may have in any matter on the agenda for the meeting, where that interest is not already entered in the authority's register of interest, or any other pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest in any such matter, you may wish to disclose it. That statement relates to the whole agenda of today's meeting, but I have a further statement. In preparation of the item on risk review on today's agenda, at item 6, members of the Fire Authority have been extensively involved and engaged at various levels, in particular throughout the recent consultation period. Members will have quite properly participated in consultation meetings and debates within their wards. Legal advice that I have received is that this level of engagement constitutes the normal work of a member and therefore does not of itself need to be declared as an interest. Members are entitled to have a predisposition towards a particular position based on their personal or political views. However, members must not have predetermined any decision. All members must approach each decision today with an open mind, having due regard to relevant information available. Any member who feels that they are unable to meet this requirement or has made a previous statement or taken action which might demonstrate that they are predetermined towards a particular decision is advised to declare such as a non-pecuniary prejudicial interest in that item and withdraw from the meeting. So that item, just to remind you, is item 6 on our agenda. So does anybody have any comment or any interest they wish to declare? Councillor Mintoff.
Thank you, Chairman. Before the debate begins, I would like to make a statement regarding predisposition and predetermination. Whilst I was concerned about the proposals in the risk review consultation, therefore predisposed, I have maintained an open mind throughout the consultation, during which I have attended every meeting that was offered to members of HFRA. I therefore do not believe that I have predetermined the outcome of the risk review process. I come to today's meeting with an open mind and will make my decision based on all relevant information presented. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Anybody else? Councillor Spicer.
Would you like me to reread what Sharon's written? Because obviously it's the same matter.
I think for the, it's your personal declaration, so I think for the record you should do so, please.
Okay. Whilst I was concerned about the proposals in the risk review consultation, therefore predisposed, I have maintained an open mind throughout the consultation, during which I have attended every meeting that was offered to members of HFRA. I therefore do not believe that I have predetermined the outcome of the risk review process. I come to today's meeting with an open mind and will make my decision based on the relevant information presented. Thank you.
Fine. Thank you for that. Can I, before we proceed, can I just clarify that you can all hear perfectly adequately? I think we need to pull these microphones in as close as we can, but I take it you can all hear me fine, can you? You can, fine, thank you. Right, we now move then to item 3 on your agenda, which is minutes of our meeting held on the 2nd of December last year. I'll take those for accuracy, so page 1, page 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 is a blank page. So are you content that is a true record? Thank you. We didn't have any actions there. Matters arising, I've just a short statement for you. Bear with me a moment while I find it. Excuse me a moment, I've lost the statement. Oh, here we are. Right, sorry about that. This relates to the item 180 on your minutes, governance review. So just to advise you, the governance working group established at the meeting in December has met and agreed a number of work streams for further consideration for the future efficiency and effectiveness of the authority. A series of working group meetings are scheduled to take this forward, and other members will be asked for their views as part of this process. It is anticipated that the group will report back to this authority at the meeting in June. Right, that's fine, thank you. Well, that keeps you informed there, members, of what is happening. Item 4, Chairman's communications. Since the last meeting of the authority in December, there have been a number of national developments of fire. On 5th of January, responsibility for fire and rescue moved from the Department of Communications and Local Government, DCLG, to the Home Office. Hampshire's shared headquarters, the building where we are, was referred to in the announcement as an example of successful collaboration. The government issued its response to last year's consultation on enabling closer working between emergency services. A report on this and the Police and Crime Bill will be brought to the authority via the next meeting of the Standards and Governance Committee. The new Minister for Fire, Mike Penning, visited us on the 27th of January. He took the opportunity to meet some of our teams, and we were able to demonstrate some of the great work we are doing with our partners. I had a short meeting with him. Ourselves and the police will be celebrating the conclusion of the latest phase of the building works, including the opening of the new reception area at an event here on the 18th of March. An official opening ceremony is planned, and this will take place once all of the works here on this site have been completed. Finally, members, this is the last meeting for 2 of our members here today. I would like to thank Councillor Phil Smith for his commitment and contribution to the authority and service since 2012. Also, this is Councillor Keith Chapman's, Vice Chairman beside me. It's his last meeting of the full authority. He will be leaving us to become Chairman of Hampshire County Council, and I know you wish to join me in thanking him for his hard work and dedication to the authority over actually many years, and I believe, Keith, it goes back to 2001, so about 15 years service. So I think that really should be recognised, and thank you, Keith, for all your devotion to the fire service. Right, so turning the page. Deputations. Now, we have 2 deputations this morning. First from Councillor Gerald Vernon Jackson on behalf of the Liberal Democrat group at Portsmouth City Council, and then Gary Jackson on behalf of the Fire Brigade Union. The procedure will be that I will invite the deputies to come up to the lectern to my right. They have up to, they're allowed up to 10 minutes to address us. There will be no questions or debate relating to their deputation. They understand that procedure. But members, I would ask you to listen carefully to what they have to say to us. So if I could invite Councillor Vernon Jackson to come to the lectern first, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I am told that I need to do this so that people out there know who I am.
Well, as I think I've told you, we are being live streamed. Indeed. So that the public can now recognise you and see who you are.
Absolutely.
Not that they don't already know you. But
Chairman, but thank you, Chairman. Thank you very much indeed for permission to be able to speak at your meeting today. and also permission to be able to present a petition of over 3,500 names. And I'm speaking here on behalf of the people who've signed the petition. So 3,500 people in the Portsmouth area have signed a petition to say they're concerned about the cuts to fire services in Portsmouth that are reflected in your document. And I'm here to ask the members of the authority to try to listen to those 3,500 people who've signed this petition and to reconsider the proposals of cuts to the fire services in Portsmouth that are in your papers today. There's real concern in Portsmouth and Southsea about the proposals. The proposal in Southsea, as described in the original document, was to go from 3 full-size fire engines to 1 full-size, 1 intermediate, and 1 vehicle described by the Hampshire Fire and Rescue Services as a van. That caused great concern. And I think one of the things that's come out of this is that people in Portsmouth have not been convinced by the fire authority or the fire service that the proposals to keep them safe work. At the public meeting held as part of this consultation, not one single speaker at that meeting supported the proposals that are in the papers today. Not one single person. There are many firefighters at that meeting, but also many members of the public, and not one single person in Portsmouth supported the proposals you're being asked to look at today. I'm really interested to see, and I really welcome, the changes that have come through from the original proposals to the things that you're going to look at today. And there have been changes across the county to reduce the cuts in different areas, and that's, I'm sure, very welcome in the communities where that's taken place. I'm disappointed that in Portsmouth there are no changes to the original proposals. 18 councils are reported in the papers as having commented and made representations. I'm disappointed that my council in Portsmouth has chosen not to make a representation, not to make a comment. But I do think there is a strong feeling in Portsmouth that the proposals in front of you today are too much in terms of cuts in Portsmouth, and I hope you will look again. The proposals, I think, cause real concern because Portsmouth is an area with many high-rise buildings and increasingly large numbers of high-rise buildings, but also that we have the naval base in the dockyard and the fire service has primary responsibility for that. The proposals to remove the staffing from the fire engine with the, I think technically it's an ALP, but the fire engine with the tall ladder, which can get up to many 11 or 12 stories, to remove the crewing from that is caused real concern. But also the reduction in number of full-size fire engines, again, has caused concern. And I think there is concern in 2 ways. Partly the risk to members of the public, that they will be left, if they're in a high-rise, they will be left in a flat where there's a fire for longer. But also the concern for the firefighters who are fighting the fires. We all know firefighters join the service because they're big-hearted people who want to help the local community. If they're waiting outside a flat where they know there's a fire, waiting for the right number of vehicles to arrive, I think there's a chance that they will take the decision that they have to go into that fire before the right number of vehicles has arrived. And that will put their lives at risk. So my concern is both for the residents in the city, but also for the firefighters. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you will reconsider the proposals for Portsmouth. I hope that you will decide that Portsmouth is taking the largest cut in the budget of anywhere in the county, and I hope that you will decide that that is too much and that you will reconsider the proposals. And Chairman, therefore, it's my pleasure to be able to present to you not 752 named petition as in your papers, but 3,500 names. And I hope that your records will show a correct number as opposed to the number printed in your agenda. But Chairman, on behalf of people of Portsmouth, who are very concerned about these proposals, can I present you this petition to ask you to reconsider and not to cut the service so much in Portsmouth?
Right. Thank you, Councillor Vernon-Jackson, for that. The members here today will have noted your comments, I'm sure. Can I now invite Gary Jackson, the representative of the FBU, to come forward to the lectern, and Gary, you have, likewise, you have 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Mr. Chairman, members of the Fire Authority, Gary Jackson, Secretary, Fire Brigades Union, Jackson, no relation. Hampshire Fire Brigades Union recognise the financial constraints being placed upon HFRS. We recognise these cuts are not of their own making. The Fire Authority should be aware that embracing this austerity agenda orchestrated by this government, the current situation has the very real potential for the Fire Authority to govern over a brigade of falling fire cover standards. We, the FBU, are committed to working with the Fire Authority to ensure the best outcome of these cuts, as any fall in performance would leave the Fire Authority vulnerable. We are extremely concerned that this could result in replacement by the Police and Crimes Commissioner, a new initiative under recent government proposals. And we believe that that is a lose-lose scenario for the future of fire and rescue services. You would be like turkeys voting for Christmas with the Police and Crime Commissioner waiting in the wings to replace you. Your only long-term strategy must be to work with the staff towards a high-performing fire and rescue service that can immerse itself within the community of Hampshire, continuing to be people-focused as we currently do. Councillor Carter, your final pledge in this document was that the Fire Authority make the best decision for the future, and Hampshire Fire Brigades Union aim to assist you in coming to the very best decision for the people of Hampshire. The Fire Brigades Union endeavoured to promote the consultation meetings with advertising, using social media and attending locally convened meetings with interested parties. At these meetings, we have consistently requested that individuals or stakeholders engage with the consultation process. And as a result of this, the service appears to have listened to some of our concerns. And this has resulted in the current proposals, which include full 24/7 cover at the likes of Winchester, Havant and Gosport. These revisions would not have been possible without the engagement of Fire Brigade Union members intent on maintaining fire cover due to their professional understanding of the issues and a refusal to put the public at greater risk in the name of cuts. I would like to formally recognise the efforts of the Fire Brigade Union members here today. In the Chairman's introduction in this document, he speaks of a 52% reduction in the number of fire-related incidents. He makes no reference to the increase in other types of calls, and his statement fails to acknowledge the background training and other activities that were required to maintain a competent workforce, able to deal with a full spectrum of incident types. This requirement does not vary with call rate. Councillor Carter also goes on to say that this drop in fire calls is down to the hard work and dedication of the service in engaging with groups. However, cuts of any sort also impact upon the service's ability to sustain this work, and this could possibly result in the subsequent increase in call numbers in coming years. We therefore expect the service to allocate sufficient budget to maintain the programme of prevention and protection activity. We also look for a commitment that income generation through the service's trading arm, 3S Fire, other private companies are available, does not impact on the day-to-day activities of risk reduction for the people of Hampshire. It would be morally repugnant for time to be spent supporting private businesses, sometimes outside Hampshire, to meet their legal obligations at the expense of auditing high-risk premises housing vulnerable groups within Hampshire. The consultation gave readers individual station ground data, allowing the document to minimise the impact of consequential moves caused by incidents. Perhaps that would be a measure of resilience. It also fails to paint a true picture of moves to other station grounds where the incident requires multiple appliance attendants, perhaps a measure of larger incidents. We therefore feel the data given in the document paints a less scary picture for the risks to readers, again reinforcing the likelihood that the proposals will appear less contentious. We also find it curious that the whole risk profile is based on turnouts under a system that has since been superseded by automatic vehicle location, which effectively changes how station grounds are defined. Now, Hampshire Fire Brigade Union welcome the undertaking that there will be no compulsory redundancies for Grey Book staff. We also applaud the desire to keep all fire stations currently within Hampshire, as we feel that our route into the communities we serve is met by this. However, keeping stations open and then diminishing fire cover to a level that is no longer effective is something that we cannot condone. Reducing the number of firefighter posts within HFRS as a way of saving expenditure may be the only way forward in the current economic climate, but we are concerned that once these posts are gone, they will never return, and that the resilience for the service in times of spate conditions, terrorist incidents, and multiple large incidents will be tested to breaking point. Failure to be able to cope under these circumstances will mean that the service management and the fire authority have failed. There is a distinction between underperformance and failure, however, neither is an option. It's not an acceptable strategy to use historical data to underpin the decision, and there are elements in the consultation document that default too often into the low probability of it happening rather than what if it did. The whole document is conceptual in nature and assumes this is how it will work in an ideal world. We agree with your statistics that most incidents happened during the hours of daylight, and this is purely a result of the fact that more people are doing more things during the day. However, the simplistic nature of the statistics misses a huge point. All the feedback from our membership, with their combined experience of many years in the field of emergency response, is that no matter how much you plan, no matter what the statistical data says, the serious fires, the horrendous RTCs will happen, and in many instances, they happen at night. A fire in a residential property at 2 p.m. is a completely different situation to one occurring at 2 a.m. Statistics may show there are a number of deaths during the day. However, that misses the point. Often these victims are vulnerable people whose pattern of activity falls outside the norm. And this issue to protect them is therefore an identification and engagement. Hampshire measure the risk used for this consultation is flawed. It supposes there is no fire. The consultation document itself states under response, despite our best efforts to prevent them, incidents will still occur. And it is with that thought in mind that the people of Hampshire expect and are entitled to the same response all day, every day, at any hour of the day, 365 days of the year. The proposed new vehicle strategy attempts to justify the removal of larger fire appliances. It tries to justify this by saying these appliances are uneconomical in 70% of the incidents. The reality is that often the nature of the incident is unknown at the time of call, and sending a full crew on a fully equipped appliance to every primary fire resources are there to make a meaningful intervention, 100% of those incidents. Perhaps if the wording had stated, we send an appliance at 30% of the incidents, we will be unable to do anything meaningful by way of an immediate intervention, would be too unpalatable. Hampshire Fire Brigade Union recognise the advances in technology, special vehicle development, and we embrace the move to rationalise locker storage. If we have smaller vehicles, Just by rationalising storage, we'll have more equipment on them, but we do not want to go down to something that is capable of being crewed with 2. The chasing of improved response times by aggregating times when smaller vehicles turn out with fewer crew and then factoring that into all station response data misses the real issue. The issue is one of RDS availability. Proactive recruitment allied to a robust training regime should result in the RDS establishment reaching 100% fully competent firefighters. Where new recruits are required, this should be in anticipation of leavers and they should be engaged as additional to the agreed establishment. The aim must be that no RDS appliance is mobilised without the capacity to commit a BA team. We welcome the investment in enhanced management of RDS within the budget proposals, but believe that this is an issue that's been left too long by repeated management regimes. We believe the service should recognise the dedication and commitment of these employees and, in many cases, their primary employer, and reward their availability, not just their turnouts. Every station, RDS and hold time, must be able to provide a minimum crew of 4 capable of responding to an incident.
Gary, sorry, can you move to a conclusion soon? I've already given you well over 10 minutes.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Whilst the FBU are happy to embrace the new technology, we do not fully understand where the high-pressure lance comes in. It is down to you. You are mandated to run an efficient fire and rescue service. We are offering our services to make sure you ask from the fire and rescue service the right questions to scrutinise their performance and their management, and we will highlight any fall in fire cover, any failing of the fire service that comes as a result of anything you sanction today. Our offer to you is we are always available to talk to, and we are happy to talk to you as members. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you very much, Gary, for your presentation there today. I think that clearly demonstrates to us the passion that exists with our firefighters, and I know our members here today will have listened very carefully to your words there. Right, so that concludes our deputations, and can we now move swiftly on to item 6 on our agenda, which is risk review final proposals. And I will invite the Chief Officer in a moment to present his report. But before I do so, can I, as Chairman of the authority, acknowledge the overwhelming engagement that we have had with our firefighters. You heard Gary just saying there about how they've been engaged, and I have witnessed that myself. I've been to a number of meetings around the county, and I was particularly struck up at Basingstoke, where one of the firefighters there was very passionate and said that would we make our correct decision when we came to the decision which we're making today, and whatever the decision was, he would remain a firefighter, and he would act accordingly and deal with the situation, and whatever we decided. And that has been exemplified to me across the county, that we have the most dedicated team of firefighters, and I acknowledge wholeheartedly their involvement in the whole process. I'd also like to thank all the members as well. You've been engaged in numerous meetings. And also, I think I should say thank you at this stage to the consultation company, Opinion Research Services, who've run the meetings and done so in a highly professional way. I think that's all that I need to say at this stage, and I'll now hand over to the Chief Officer, who will introduce his report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. As your Chief Fire Officer, I present to you this morning the final proposals of the risk review process. I'll open the presentation of this paper. I'll hand over to my Deputy Chief, Neil Odin, and then Andy Bowers will take us through some of the details of the proposals. I can only impress upon you the importance of this decision. I know you know that, but it does set, for me as the Head of Service and for Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service, a strategic direction at least over the next 4 years and probably into the 2020s. Firstly, I'd like to thank the risk review team. It's been 2.5 years in the making. It's involved a whole number of people from the service and a team that have worked incredibly hard to bring these proposals together. I do believe that it has been the most significant examination of risks of the services that Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service provides that has ever been undertaken. It's the most sophisticated look at the risks of this county in relation to the services that we provide. It not only looked at all of the data, and there are a lot of information that is in the risk review team's possession, but it also, I think importantly, used the professional judgment, not only myself as the Head of Service, but also my senior team, but also, I'm pleased to say, the professional views of the entire service, including, very importantly, the firefighters that work in our local communities. I'd like to thank my staff, my entire staff of Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service, and the public and the unions. They have been involved, all of them, through not just a consultation through the autumn, but for that 2-year process of examining our service and the risks that we attend. And it culminated in what I believe to be a meaningful and robust consultation process that we saw through the autumn. I'd like to make the point that this is an evolution of the service. It's a part of our journey. And if you examine the fire service, it has been changing since the 90s with community safety, with road safety, and now with medical response. It is part of our evolution. It is certainly not a revolution. I will confirm in this report that there are no in-force redundancies planned for the Grey Book, the operational staff, and there are no station closures put forward. Important principle of my own, that we have 51 fire stations. If you think about it, part of that journey and that history, they've been established in the positions they are currently in over the last 60 years since the Second World War, and I believe them to be covering the county in a suitable way. This was an examination of the fire cover that we provide on those stations. It also highlights the widening role of the service. Again, if you think of the progress and the history, we moved in the 80s and 90s as a service that was solely focused on fire. We added on the rescue, Hampshire Fire and Rescue, in the 90s. We then went to community safety. And this paper underlines as well our move towards medical interventions and ill health prevention. And I think they are important aspects of our future provision to the communities of Hampshire. Fundamentally, though, these proposals focus on changing what I believe to be, to date, a blanket approach to fire cover. That blanket approach has seen 76 fire engines with 5 people on each, up to now, to a more flexible and graduated approach that we are now calling an emergency response. At the heart of that change, there is based 2 linked principles. Moving from a blanket approach to 3 levels of capability and a new approach to tackling property fires. That new approach to tackling property fires is called SAVE, and we have talked with you about that new approach, and Andy will articulate that further in the presentation. Then we look at the deployment in 2 ways: the crewing of our fire stations and the vehicle disposition. And they are found in the appendix to the report, and I think set out clearly in terms of how we deploy that new capability, the 51 stations. I'd like to thank the significant contributions, particularly from certain teams of our staff. A cultural approach that I'm extremely passionate about is about the involvement of our staff in the development of solutions. It's not my fire and rescue service. We, as 1,800 people, provide a service in this county. And I'm incredibly proud of those teams through the consultation that have actually contributed to the solution to achieve the outcomes that we were seeking. And we have built those into the final proposals. I would encourage, and I will continue to encourage, that engagement. It is vital that, subject to the decisions that you make this morning, that the staff of Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service and their professional views are used within the implementation which will cover the next 3-year period. It is also vital that the authority, through the Performance Review and Scrutiny Committee, oversee and scrutinise that implementation. And the performance improvements that we set out in this paper hold me to account for, because that is what I'm saying that I will achieve and my service will achieve through the implementation of these proposals. And it is absolutely right that you examine those through your relevant committees. I'll now hand over to Neil Odin, who will take us through the process, and then we'll move on to Andy in terms of the detailed changes. Neil.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, members. Not only am I the Deputy Chief Fire Officer and as such have been leading the risk review team on behalf of the Chief Officer for the last 2.5 years, I'm also Chair of the Health and Safety Committee, which is a feature which plays very strongly into the proposals which are before you today. For me, there have been 3 principles throughout. Safer firefighters, safer community, and a solution that fits our financial envelope. Those 3 matters have played very keenly in our consideration along this process. So before you have a paper, and I make no apologies for the fact the paper is a large one, because there's a lot of detail to try to give you to allow you to make the best decision. But in order to help you understand the structure of that paper and allow us to break down our presentation to you, I explain each part in order. So we've described the process, how indeed we've reached the conclusions we have before you today. And this process has been sharply overseen by the Performance Review and Scrutiny Committee. And that, holding to the authority's beliefs and understanding about good governance in public service, ensures that we as officers are monitored and challenged during that process also. And on a note of challenge, I'm absolutely proud to say that our unions, our staff, are in a position that they continue to challenge us day by day and are invited to do so and welcome to do so, because we believe it is the very way we get the best solutions. So we welcome that and have welcomed that to date. In the paper also, we talked about consultation, and in September you made the decision as an authority to go to consultation on the proposals we developed at that stage. During this consultation, has been referred to already, the 12 weeks, there's a great deal of consultation and feedback in that period of time, and we described that in the paper. We then entered a period of consideration, which you were also involved in, and final proposals are described in the paper which come out of that. In these final proposals, we talk about activity-based crewing, the crewing models, the financial elements around those crew models, and there's a large appendix showing the proposals which are described as happen now, as exist in our fire stations, the proposals that we put forward during the consultation, and the amended final proposals following that consultation. For completeness, all 3 elements are shown in that appendix. We've also described the impact assessment in that paper also, so you can see the impact on our staff and our communities. A large part I wanted to stress before I pass to Andy to describe some of those details is that paper describes the performance we expect, and as the Chief Officer's just described, we expect to be held to account too. As you can imagine, being fire officers, we're very focused on action, we're very focused on performance and delivery. So we absolutely support the idea of being challenged. We lay these performance figures out in a paper, being real and analysed. I will not give you a pipe dream of a target. I'll give you a target I know I can achieve, one that's going to be challenging for my teams, but we'll continue to do that should the decision be made today. So these performance targets performance agreements within the paper are to reduce county-wide response times to under 7 minutes. That is a big challenge for a rural fire and rescue service like Hampshire, but one I know we can achieve. Your response time target you set us some years ago within the Integrated Risk Management Plan was 8 minutes. This will be improved by 12% over the coming years. Building fires will be confined to the room of origin more often, raising to 89%. And retained duty system, which is the lifeblood of our service, the availability will increase from 90 to 96%. That's not only because of our new arranged crewing systems, but because we're investing money in supporting them and driving recruitment and retaining them in our fire stations. Coupled with those performance figures, the realisation of £2.9 million savings for the issues we're talking today contribute towards an overall £4.1 million that I myself am contributing within service delivery to the overall service target. So those agreements, those promises within the paper, we are held to account on. We'll be held to account by PRSC in the future and to the full authority in order, and also welcome the challenge from our own staff unions and community on those matters. Just a short note about process. So as I mentioned to PRSC, the committee has been oversighting the process. Engagement 14-15 brought many of our firefighters into contact with the early proposals, giving their own views forward very early. Some reserved their right to see what the service considered and continue to contribute in the following year in 15. Some matters changed in that period of time. The consultation opened in September 15 and, as I said, it lasted for 12 weeks. And in that we had some very, very interesting and useful debates, conversations and meetings in public and with our staff. And I know many of you members were involved in those also, which I'm grateful for. This culminated in an open and transparent report, which you'll have all seen, and it's appended to your reports today, which was from Opinion Research Services, which summarised and detailed what was fed back from those various different methods of gaining views from our communities. Not only in open forum, but in closed forum, where the activities were very much neutralised, so that it was a view from people from the street who had not been given a view beforehand. But equally, it's important to hear those members of our community that had a very strong feeling because they knew for some of our firefighters, they may be connected with some of our firefighters. It's equally important to listen to those people too, which we did. So what we heard during that consultation, there was clear support for the multiple capability idea, so having a capability which spread across the risks that we face day by day. There was support for mobilising the right resource to the right type of incident. And there was support for raising council tax to support fire and rescue authorities carry out their functions. However, there were also concerns coming from the consultation. The only 2 riders, being restricted to 2 riders only on our vehicles, was a matter of concern for people. The lower crewing at low activity periods, so at night time, these were a concern to communities. And the uncertainty about what the first response vehicle actually looked like, and the definition of van, which we heard come out of various quarters, but not from the service, I would add, and the kit it may carry. That was a concern that came through the consultation. So the final proposal before you today has considered those main issues from the consultation very, very strongly, and has absolutely influenced our proposal to you today. One, because it's the right thing to do. Public consultation is not to be mocked at. It's a very clear process for gathering views of our communities we serve, and that is why their views are very clearly displayed in this report. However, it is clear we cannot please everybody, and nor should we try to. What we are trying to do as professional officers is advise you as an authority the best thing to do to protect and to reassure the community. And as a result, we've considered nighttime cover and worked very closely with our fire stations, those that have had particularly clear ideas about what they thought they could do. And we've had some excellent response from fire stations, which Andy Bowers will describe in a second. So we're willing to and able to move to a different nighttime cover, which gives us further resilience and satisfies the concerns we heard during consultation. We've also moved to control the issue over 2 men in a van, which is again a phrase not created by Fire and Rescue Service. We are clear that we need to be able to mobilise a crews of 2 where we need to, but we'll always plan to have crews of 4. Our kit and equipment will be adapted to allow 2 people to do an excellent start. But we're also clear we're not going to leave 2 people to resolve an incident on their own. That has never been the case and never will be a case going forward. A building fire will continue to have 9 to 12 or more firefighters mobilised immediately at point of call. And we've also moved, as you'll seen at the back and you'll see after the authority, we've moved very clearly to get our staff much more familiar with the new technology available. We sent crews to understand some of the global leaders in this technology, and I think we would all accept that that will be a continuing journey after today's decision in either way that goes. So in preparing the final report for you, we've very much paid attention to the people impact, and that's in your report. That's very, very important. Not only is it a legal requirement, but it's an important aspect for us to consider during consultation and indeed implementation to understand the impacts on people and how we must handle those in the next phase. We've also used Community Action Hampshire to ensure that our impact in our communities, in particular those with differences in our communities, whether it be disability or otherwise, are not unduly affected by these proposals, and we're clear that that is not the case. However, there are some considerations for us to keep in our minds during implementation. So that is the process we've been through. It's been very, very carefully conducted to ensure we had the very best and open, transparent process, and we've been commended by those who oversee us to ensure that that system, that process of consultation and final proposal is as good as it possibly can be. But I hold to the promises I make in that paper. As the Chief Officer said, we will be measured, we will be monitored and challenged in the future. And I think that's the right and proper thing to do. Now, to detail some of those stations and to help us understand the appendix more in the room, I'm going to ask Andy Bowers to do some more description about the detail. But I would say Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service is very proud. It has some of the best fire and rescue service staff, best firefighters in the country, if not the world, and that will continue into the future. We have national leaders in operations. Andy Bowers has been one of those people. We have tried and tested modelling to support with this proposal, and that's been globally tried and tested in many, many different arenas. And we're using some of the most advanced equipment and global advice in making sure that Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service continues to be safe for firefighters, safe for communities, and fitting for our financial futures. So I'm glad that we've got Andy Bowers sat next to me, and he'll do some discussion and description of how the rest of the details sit together. Andy.
Thank you, Neil. Chairman, members, you know me, I'm your Head of Operational Response. I have the privilege and responsibility of carrying out that task and have been working for Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service now for nearly 30 years. I believe we are already in an excellent service, and I believe that the model you see before you today builds upon that and is an evolution of the improvements we continually make and have always made throughout my career. The model is fit for purpose. It does bring a fundamental change to the way we operate, and I believe is the foundation for the next 10 years at least. It's built upon those fundamental principles you've already heard. The SAVE approach, scan, attack, ventilate, enter, extinguish, which we have developed with our staff. It gives us flexibility, innovation and multiple options for mobilising, and is deployed from stations crewed appropriately to the level of risk and vulnerability and demand, both locally, strategically across the county, and meeting our national resilience requirements. Importantly, it achieves our aim of balancing resources and actual risk across the 51 fire stations in the county, keeping all of them open and active and with the optimum level of resources. Crucially, this isn't just about traditional operational response, however. Although much of the attention has rightly been focused on this aspect of our role, these proposals also give us a solid base for continuing to develop our community safety activities, as well as medical response and ill health prevention work in that emerging area of our operations. They support a future-focused fire and rescue service that adds public value wherever it can. We have talked much about greater use of technology to support the plans. Each element of the SAVE approach is tried and tested, and we're dealing with established technology that is new only to us, but is in use somewhere else in other parts of the world, in other parts of the country. What is new and unique is the construct, the way we've put it together, the way we've put that package as a whole with that SAVE mnemonic to encapsulate it. And as I say, that is that part which is innovative and novel and groundbreaking. It is not the individual component parts of the SAVE approach. They are all tried and tested methods. It is true to say that this firefighting model for fires in buildings, which of course only make up a small percentage of the 25,000 calls a year we respond to, is a fundamental change. It is a challenge to so significantly adapt and evolve the way we operate, but I am personally 100% convinced that the SAVE approach will radically improve the way we operate and will make the public and firefighters safer. I would not be putting my name to any change that I did not think achieves that. I do, however, acknowledge concerns from some members of staff about the new approach. Although we will always plan to respond with at least 4 riders when they are available, we know that on occasions we may have 2 or 3 riders, particularly in our retained areas, on the closest available vehicle. The SAVE approach enables us to have a safe system of work that builds layer upon layer depending on the number of people that are there, and which 2 people can begin to implement even whilst they are waiting for further firefighters to arrive, unlike at current. We've worked really closely with our crews, especially, and I'm going to commend them, particularly Rushmore Fire Station and their personnel have worked really closely and have been heavily involved in developing our thinking to this point, and are extremely keen to further develop this new firefight model and to prove its benefits. Again, important to note that under the current model, those resources of only 2 or 3 people would not currently be able to be mobilised and wouldn't be available at all. We have also heard some concern about mobilising for this new approach. You will be aware of the extremely comprehensive project we have recently run to install a new mobilising system in fire control in Hampshire and partnered with Dorset, Wiltshire, Devon and Somerset. This new state-of-the-art system is designed to work on asset-based mobilising, i.e. getting the right number of resources to an incident in the smartest way possible. This includes people, skills and equipment, and isn't just looking at vehicles almost irrespective of what's on them as the old system did. The new system, therefore, is also an enabler of our new approach, and the required number of firefighters for any incident will always be sent. As Neil has already said to you, the incident task analysis remains valid, and we will continue to send that number of firefighters, the right number of firefighters to the incident. We'll just be sending them in a more intelligent, more flexible way than we currently do. You can see then that these projects and these recommendations are the product of several years of planned and carefully considered development. Essential building blocks are in place to provide a solid foundation for the proposals you see before you today. Importantly, throughout this project, we've continued to evolve our thinking and improve the proposals. The iteration you see today is changed in a number of areas due to the consultation feedback we have received, where our staff have worked closely with us to develop alternative ideas, where the public have raised issues that were important to them, where we could see both the case and an alternative solution, then we've amended the proposals. These amended proposals have added to our thinking, and we have improved the package of measures that you see before you today, which I believe are a comprehensive, well-considered and integrated approach, which confirm and validate the methodology and establish a system for future developments and improvements in future operations. The significant changes specifically from those that were published in the consultation document are at Rushmore and Hightown, to give the same number of firefighters available both day and night on the same number of vehicles. At Gosport, Havant, Winchester and Andover, to give a minimum crew of 4 immediately available response firefighters both day and night. At Fleet, to give a further intermediate sized vehicle in that area of the county based on its strategic location. At Redbridge in Southampton, to give this largely residential area an ultra high pressure lance capability which it previously did not have. The 19 co-responder schemes across the county have had an additional firefighter added to the establishment figures in order to ensure that both corresponding and firefighting capability are maintained irrespective of levels of demand. Together with the pre-existing changes which we had made prior to the proposals, but as a result of initial consultation with our staff at Overton, Alresford, Wickham, Burley, Redbridge, New Milton and Southsea, these show that we have listened, have considered these alternatives and have used our staff's expertise and knowledge and enthusiasm to further improve and adapt our proposals. As your Head of Operations, I have no hesitation in commending to you these proposals, and I'll now pass you back to the Chief Officer to conclude.
Thank you, Andy, and thank you, Neil. I think this is a balance between technology and savings. I don't deny, and I've been asked by a number of reporters over the recent months, what was the driver for change. And I won't shy away from the fact the catalyst for this conversation and change was a financial pressure. But it forced a change in thinking. And if you think of any industry in the world, technology has forced a change in the way we work. And the fire service is no different to other industries and services that you can examine in the world. What we have done is, on a journey I've 2.5 years, learnt there is new technology and there are new ways of working. And I want to lead a service that employs that latest cutting-edge technology to deliver the most efficient service that we can possibly achieve. I then have been accused that we're hiding the savings under a blanket of technology, and I can understand that. And I don't shy away from that. These proposals, the original savings target was 5 million. The proposals to the consultation saw a saving of 4.3 million because it had already gone through an engagement process with our staff where we made savings. And these final proposals, if agreed this morning, would save 4.1 million. And they are sufficient to ensure that we have a robust medium-term financial plan through to 2020, subject to the decisions that you'll make on the next paper, the budget setting. Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service is, I truly believe, at its very best, and I see this day to day and through operational incidents, when it has clarity of purpose. As your Chief Officer, I am confident that these proposals will improve public safety, improve firefighter safety, and put us in a strong financial position through to 2020. I also truly believe that these final proposals will maintain us as one of the leading fire and rescue services, if not in the UK, but actually in the world. Thank you, Chairman. Happy to take questions.
Well, how do you follow that? Yes. Can I, first of all, members, thank all our officers who've given us a very comprehensive presentation there. Can I remind you that at our meeting, seems ages ago now, last September, we agreed to consult on a concept for the future of Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service to make it a flexible service, adapting to new technology and fit for the future, fit for the 21st century, but at the same time protecting every resident in Hampshire from the risks that can arise at any time. Now, members, you've been reminded by our officers this morning in their presentation of your role, and your role is to hold them to account, and you've been reminded that that's going to be through our Performance Review Committee. We're discussing risk review this morning, but this is just the first phase. This is going to be over 3, possibly longer years before it's fully implemented, and that the whole process will be fully reviewed by the performance review over that total time. So now it's your chance to ask questions. We'll take questions first, obviously, and then we will move later into debate. I have the first question from Councillor Price.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to go into debate. I didn't realise you were going to take questions first, but I'll...
No, so do you have a question? No question. Who's the first one for a question then? Councillor Fuller.
Thank you, Chairman. Andy, you've highlighted the change at Hightown between the consultation and the current proposal. Could you give me some detail on the level of staff support for that? I'm just conscious I don't want a proposal to come forward that's just from one member of staff.
Yes, I can, thank you. We've talked extensively to Hightown, and whilst I couldn't claim it was 100% of all members of staff, it is the very large majority. All of the watches are behind the proposal and the station commander, so it is well received and supported at Hightown.
Sorry, Councillor Frankham.
Yes, I've got two questions, please. Basically, can I be assured that built in with the risk review, you've taken account of the new working with medical needs and with the police assistance? And also, could you possibly tell me what difference it's going to make to stations being offline because of crewing? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so medical needs, and particularly currently the assistance we're given to the ambulance service with the police, actually. So that continues to be a growing area of work, but one we can absolutely be better equipped for in the future. And it kind of links with your second question, in a way, making sure that stations are available. Our fire stations, particularly those retained duty system fire stations, actually do much better when they're busier, because there's more for them to do. They're committed to the fire station, they keep themselves available because they're being called to things. So clearly we need to control and balance the demands we have from the ambulance service and then sometimes the police for things we do to make sure that it doesn't take away important and vital fire cover, but actually the station being more busy will attract and retain more staff on our RDS stations. At the same time, around the vehicles being unavailable, so moving the improvement figures described in the paper, not only being able to mobilise and equip properly vehicles safely for 2 riders, but importantly focused on making sure we have 4 and investing money back into the service to ensure we've got good retained duty system support teams to further drive recruitment, further drive retention. So that's one of our key focuses coming up, and the figures in the paper which describe a higher availability are associated with high retention and higher numbers.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I've been advised that we do have people viewing us online, 100 odd people. Can I ask that when you start to speak, it might be appropriate for the people watching this if you say which area of Hampshire you represent, because that will be useful for. We all know here who we represent, but those watching online will obviously not know. So we've heard from Councillor Fuller from Southampton and Councillor Frankham from Basingstoke, and now we've got Councillor Stubbs.
Sorry, Chairman, I was going to make a comment, so I was hoping we were going to move into the debate.
Oh, we're not in debate, so we're still on questions. So who was
Councillor Fairhurst.
Councillor Fairhurst from Havant.
Thank you, Chairman. I actually represent Lee Park in Bedhampton, but it was concerning, it was a question to Andy about the Havant Fire Station, which I know put forward their own proposals during the consultation and spoke to me about them. I was very pleased to see that the fire service, the original proposals were changed to take into account their views, and I just wondered, have you had any feedback from Havant Fire Station about how the change was received by the firefighters down there? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, as you rightly say, Havant put forward some proposals, and we're pleased to work with them. The exact details of how that will work are still remaining. They're outstanding, and we will use them to develop the actual duty system that supports their proposals. I've personally spoken to a couple of the watches at Havant. My colleagues have spoken to all of the watches at Havant, and yes, that's been very well received by the Havant personnel.
Can I just support that? A very important principle for all of our stations, particularly whole-time stations, which we've seen at Fareham operating over the last 3 or 4 years, is where we've set the outcome for the station. The number of fire engines, the 24/7 cover, and we've allocated a number of staff to that station in total. And then what Fareham have really demonstrated is that they can create their own shift pattern, they can create their own way of working which suits, on that occasion, 28 staff at Fareham Fire Station. And that has been, over the last 4 years, one of our most successful and efficiently run fire stations. What we're seeking through this process and the good involvement of our staff is to replicate that across particularly our other whole-time stations. And our involvement with Havant, I think, is a good example of where we can take that sort of approach even further. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison, New Forest.
Yes, indeed, Chairman. Thank you. I wanted to pick up on the issue of the high-pressure lamps capability at Redbridge. Down the waterside, there are a number of large buildings. I'm thinking about Marchwood Industrial Estate, and further on down the waterside. I'd like to know if that high-pressure lance capability will be sufficient at Redbridge, because during one of the briefing sessions we had, it was made clear that just one lance won't do the job. It would need several lances in the bigger buildings.
Yes, so you're absolutely right, and we've certainly begun to look at the evidence around the number of lances that will make a difference in a very large area, such as this one, for example, as opposed to a conventional domestic bedroom, for instance. So the additional vehicle at Redbridge is one additional lance on top of the number that we already have. With the proposals, there are some 50 vehicles equipped with ultra-high pressure lances strategically spread across the county, including on the water side. Redbridge was one addition because it stood out as an area of largely residential property, which under the previous iterations of the proposals didn't have an ultra-high pressure lance. So we have both the intermediate vehicles and the first response vehicles. Our intention is to equip them with the ultra-high pressure technology. Redbridge needed the additional vehicle to fit that model.
Thank you. And now I've got Councillor Mintoff from Southampton.
Thank you, Chairman. I sought an assurance at the meeting last September that these proposals are not set in stone. So if something appears to be sort of maybe not working as well as you expect it to, can things change? Is it set in stone, and does that still apply sort of going forward during the implementation phase? Thank you.
I think it's a very good question, and I think it's one thing that, as the Chief said earlier, about evolution. I think to say that that this is it now forever would not be a sensible thing for me to say. But that said, a mandate from the authority, which this paper is asking for today, gives me and my team the clarity to go and deliver this. And indeed, we must always keep an eye on the future, eye on our changing environment. That is the very nature of an integrated risk management plan. As risk changes, therefore, so should we. So and certainly a question was asked in public debate. So if risk went up, would we increase our resources? Well, I would certainly be coming back and asking for that to occur. But that's the challenge we have. So yes, this is, should you agree today, this is our mandate for the immediate future. But we'll certainly be coming back, keeping you informed about changes strategically which may affect fire cover in the future in Hampshire.
If I may just add to that, thank you, Neil. I think what we are seeking here is the agreement to some principles which I covered in my presentations, 3 levels of capability and a changed approach to property fires which drives the way we create an emergency response. I think what we will learn as we implement how that is best delivered, and we'll learn how best to deploy. And in terms of the deployment, that is based on the risks in the county. So as the risks over the years change, we will now have a more sophisticated approach to be able to change that deployment if the risks change. So we'll learn through implementation, and we'll always look at deployment to make sure that it matches risk. Thank you, Chairman.
And just adding to what was said there, that really focuses on our role as members of the authority to hold the service to account. And as I said earlier, we will do that through performance review. This is going to take quite some time to implement, but we will have regular meetings and we'll be assessing the performance. And as has been said by our officers, if the risk changes in some areas significantly, well, that is something that it's the specific role of the authority to deal with that and to hold the service to account. So, yes, we will be looking carefully going forward. Sorry, any more questions, please? Debate. No? No more questions? Right, well, we can now move then to debate, and I have Councillor Price, who indicated some time ago. So, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I didn't find it necessary to actually ask any questions because I've had numerous discussions with officers, and also the number of meetings we've been to, I felt that I understood what was being proposed. Firstly, I would like to thank Councillor Gerald Vernon-Jackson and also Gary Jackson for both giving good presentations on how they see where we're going and what we should be doing. I'd also like to thank our officers and opinion research services for the consultation process. It was said to me by one person that the consultation document was one of the best documents they've ever seen. It laid out totally what was being proposed, what was there at the present, and you could understand what was being laid out there, rather than very often documents are confusing between what is at present and what is being proposed. So congratulations to everybody on that. When we actually agreed back in September to go out to consultation, I made a number of points where I felt that the recommendations within that document were not as they should be. One of them was about 2 firefighters riding on a small fire appliance, and also I had concerns about the manning of the ALP at Southsea. I am very pleased that in the majority of cases the senior staff have listened to our firefighters, the public, and also members, because members have also had an influence in actually changing some of the recommendations. And the new proposals, which in my opinion meet most of the issues which were actually raised. Yes, nobody's going to get exactly what they want. I would personally prefer to see a further change, as the officers know, on equipment at a station quite close to me. But that wasn't to be. During the process, I think the biggest lesson that the service learned, and that was to do with the small appliance. One talked about a small appliance and nobody knew or had any indications of what it was going to look like. And I think that if when the process had started, it had been shown exactly what that appliance was going to be, not exactly what it was going to be, but more in line with what it will probably turn out to be. Sorry? Yes. But the small appliance, at the beginning, it gave to a lot of confusion of people of not knowing what it was going to look like. So I think that's a big lesson for consultations in the future. If we're going to put something in which is new and innovative, then we must make sure that we explain exactly what the thoughts are. I'm pleased, very pleased to say that there is no redundancy of firefighters, and there's also no fire station closures. Like I have to say, some of the services in the UK have actually made closures to fire stations and have reduced the number of firefighters. I think that within this, we are actually looking at the most modern equipment, most modern technology that is available, and therefore introducing that into our service. Although some of it has been available around for some time, and one or two other services have been using it. We've taken advantage of their experience they've had. We've taken the opportunity to go to, not members, but officers, to go to Sweden and actually sort of see where it is manufactured, see the equipment, and make sure we are utilising all of the equipment that is available to us. I mean, another piece of the equipment which I think is being looked at and is going to probably become available on the new appliances is the piece of equipment which is used quite a lot on road accidents, and that's for cutting people out. Instead of having to carry a compressor generating air to then use on cutting equipment, we're going to use battery operated, which will still do the same job, but it means less equipment and therefore less larger vehicles needed in some cases. From the original concepts, most of the issues have been covered, and I am very pleased, and the most thing that I'm pleased about is that the small appliance will now ride with 4 firefighters. The intention is 4 firefighters will ride, but we have situations in some retained stations where the 4 firefighters won't turn in, but the appliance will still be able to go with 2 or 3 firefighters. And that will actually improve the services to the people living in that area. So I welcome that very much. I also welcome the change to 4 stations, which are now gone 24/7, rather than as they were only retained cover at night. I also welcome the extra person on the retained stations where they're doing co-responding. And in particular, I welcome the 2 extra firefighters for my own station at Porchester for co-responding particularly. If I just make a point at that station, it is working extremely hard with co-responding and responding and supporting the ambulance service. Recently, Porchester Fire Station was the only cover for emergency medical service in the Gosport, Portsmouth, Fareham and Havant area. All ambulances were off the run. I suspect they were waiting at QA Hospital to unload patients. So the Porchester co-responding, and if we weren't taking that up now, then there would have been no medical care. So I think that is extremely good work which we're doing. That unfortunately comes and leaves me with Southsea, where there has been a lot of comments from the public, firefighters, about the size of appliances and the number of firefighters, especially with the number of high-rise properties in Portsmouth and the increasing number. Personally, I support the fire appliance fleet because the small, medium appliance plus the larger appliance will give good cover. It will cover all the tools in the box for the firefighters to use. And certainly the small and the medium appliance will be able to get through the streets of Portsmouth much easier than a large appliance. And in my opinion, also be able to get to a station, to an incident much quicker. The difficulty then comes down to the crewing, and that is the only issue which I still have within this document concerning the Southsea and the Portsmouth situation is crewing. I do want to propose an amendment to the recommendations which are before us. Now, I don't know if you want me to actually say what that amendment is now, or whether you want to leave that to a later stage, Mr. Chairman. But I do welcome and will support the whole package which is here, because I think it is a way of moving forward and providing an excellent fire service to the county of Hampshire. Thank you.
Right. Do you have a seconder for your proposed amendment? Do we?
I haven't said what the amendment is, so I'm not sure there would be, but I'm sure I will have a seconder.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, the actual amendment, so that you're aware what it is that in light of the comments made regarding cover at Southsea Fire Station for the City of Portsmouth, the officers re-look at the proposals for this fire station and report back to the next Fire Authority meeting. What I want is just a final look at it to make sure. I know there's been a lot of looking and examination, but I think it's important that we are all satisfied, because that appears to me to be the only issue which is really outstanding from all the comments that have been made elsewhere.
Right, so you have a seconder for that amendment, do you? Okay. Right, we will adjourn the meeting for a few minutes. That amendment needs to be written out with your 2 signatures on and distributed to all members here. So we'll adjourn the meeting for, how long will that take? About 5 minutes? 5-minute adjournment. Members, can I ask you to reconvene and take your seats, please? Right, can I ask everybody to take their seats, please, so we can reconvene the meeting? Right, has everybody settled down? Everybody ready? Okay, right, so the meeting is now back in session, and we have an amendment proposed by Councillor Price of Fareham and Councillor Smith from Portsmouth. And this amendment, I think, is an addition to recommendation 2.2 on your page 1 of your item 6 agenda. I'll read it out to you. In the light of the comments made regarding cover at Southsea Fire Station for the City of Portsmouth, the officers re-look at the proposals for this fire station and report back to the next Fire Authority meeting. I will invite Councillor Price to present his amendment in a moment. Can I just ask Councillor Smith, will you wish to speak now, or do you wish to reserve your right to speak?
Thank you, Chairman. I will reserve until others have spoken.
Fine, thank you. I will invite Councillor Price to speak in a moment, and then I'll open it up to other debate. But I will also ask the Chief Officer to speak. Do you want to speak first? Right, okay. Well, we'll take the debate first. So initially, Councillor Price, if you'd like to speak to your amendment, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I say, first of all, I apologise for having to cause a break to get this photocopied. I made an assumption, obviously a wrong assumption, that what would have happened, so I had it already typed out and I thought I would have just given it to the committee clerk to actually then read out as we have done normally in the past. So I apologise for that. On hindsight, it could have been done better. Having said that, looking at all the proposals within the document which is being presented to us this morning, is that this, to me, is the only station where there is still a question mark over it, where one needs to be totally sure. Because what we are doing today, we're setting the parameters for the service to go ahead with the changes which they're making. Now, I accept totally that things will happen and things will get changed in the future over the period of time, but I do strongly believe that we need to further look at Southsea just to be totally sure we've either got it dead right as per the new proposals, or whether there should be some slight amendments to that to coincide with what firefighters at Southsea would like to see, the public in Portsmouth would like to see, and therefore there could be a further slight change. So all I want to do is just to be totally happy and get the officers to re-look at it again to make sure that there isn't something that's been missed, because that is the important point.
Right, thank you for that. I've got Councillor Stubbs now, I think.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Much has been made this morning, both obviously in Councillor Price's amendment and by Councillor Vernon Jackson speaking earlier, in relation to Southsea and fire cover in Portsmouth. And they are, I suppose, they're challenging us with a number of questions. And I would like you to provide you with an answer to some of those, because, you know, we've had a campaign running against these cuts in the city for a while. A number of particular issues have been raised, and I have previously asked fire officers about these and have gathered some statistics on them. The first of these is the area ladder platform. Now, as has been made very clear, the area ladder platform, the 30-metre long ladder, is going to remain at the Southsea fire station. The only change proposed is that it will not have its own crew. And there's a couple of points about that. Firstly, actually the biggest use of the area ladder platform is in industrial fires, not flat fires, where it's used to spray downwards over burning buildings. But even within that, you have to ask, really, what's the balance? So we have two crew, we have 2 people per watch whose role is to man the area ladder platform. So that's 8 people to man the area ladder platform. How many times was the area ladder platform called out in 2015? The answer to that is it was called out 16 times. So it is not, although we're not able to cope, because you can always put someone else who's on the watch, someone else who's available onto the area ladder platform. And when you have a piece of equipment that is deployed less than just over once per month, it seems disproportionate to have crew just for that function. Another point has been made about the dockyard and about fires in the dockyard. Now, of course, the first thing to note on that is everyone who has been through naval basic training has been trained in fighting fires. But even so, there is the potential for a call-out. Well, how many call-outs have there been? Well, there's been a few call-outs which were false alarms, and there's been a few which are special service call-outs, which is mostly trapped in the lift. But in terms of the number of fires in the dockyard, in 2015, there were 3 fires, and that was all. And another point which has been raised is about student halls of residence. Again, there were some special service call-outs there, and there were some false alarms, but the total number of fires in 2015 in student halls of residence was 2. So these are not large numbers. Now, of course, they're not large numbers, and you could say, well, but fires still matter, and what if you were in that situation and it would be important then, and that's absolutely right. But we have to have a bit of balance here. We have to balance risk with basically with cost and resources. And after all, if you take the Puritan line, no, we should never do that, we should always have the cover for the worst case, well, why is it then that the fire brigade puts officers out to do home visits in order to install smoke alarms? Because by doing that, that is, in effect, lengthening response times if all of the vehicles were called out at once. But it's in recognition that this rarely happens. And so you have to balance risk with the rewards that come from it. And we are talking on the issues that have been raised, the aerial ladder platform, the naval base, student halls of residence. We are talking about really quite a minimal number of fires. It is also, should be noted, that these proposals, under these proposals, Southsea would remain the largest fire station in Hampshire. It will still have 16 full-time staff, which is bigger, which is more than any of the other fire stations anywhere in the county. The first response vehicle, I think a number of people have stressed this already, but I'd like to repeat it. The intention is that it will deploy with 4 people on it. It could deploy with 2 if necessary, but how is that a bad thing? You would only deploy with 2 if you only had 2 people available. At the moment, if you only had 2 people available, nothing would deploy at all. So it's an improved cover, it's not a degradation. I mean, the whole 2 men with a van thing, I mean, that is certainly not something which has come from the fire service, and it's hardly just a van, is it? I mean, this vehicle is going to cost about £170,000 when kitted out. It is not, it is a proper fire engine. It is also recognition that when you're using the high pressure lance, you don't need as much water. And if you don't need as much water, you don't need as big a vehicle to provide that capability on. And the upside is that this means improved response times, 43 seconds improved response time. And where is it at the moment that the HFRS has problems with accidents and getting through and manoeuvring through tight streets? Well, it is the greatest number of accidents involving fire engines are in Portsmouth. The only area which is in any way comparable to that is the inner districts of Gosport, where you have narrow Victorian streets which are difficult to get through with a large vehicle at speed. So I think what we have here is, by using new technology, updated working practices, and working with really to put much continued effort into preventing fires, that we can have a better service at a lower cost. And I would certainly commend it. These proposals have been around now. They've gone through a number of iterations. They've been under discussion for a couple of years. I fail to see what benefit there is in asking for a delay. Frankly, I find it difficult to take it terribly seriously. What is the point? We've been over this over and over and over. And there's no purpose, there's no gain in having a stay of execution. Frankly, I think it looks political to ask for it, and I endorse the recommendations that we have before us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stubbs. I've now got Councillor Fuller, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I just don't see really the point in this amendment. Putting the decision off by a couple of months is simply going to leave the firefighters at that station in a state of flux with no certainty about what's going to happen. I think many of the issues that have been raised about this fire station have been addressed very eloquently by Councillor Stubbs and by officers in the past. And unless something has materially changed since this station was looked at, or we as a fire authority are changing the criteria of what is being looked at, the outcome is going to be the same. All we are doing is leaving this station with uncertainty. And I just think this amendment is pointless on that basis.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. Do I have any other speakers? Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I listened with interest to what's been said, in particular to Councillor Stubbs, as he comes from Portsmouth. And he mentioned that Southsea is the largest fire station in the county. So naturally, I looked up the details. Immediately underneath Southsea is St Mary's, which I assume is the second largest because it has 15 members, not 16. I then divided the population of Portsmouth that is covered by the Southsea of 137,000, which is given in the book, and that comes up with 8,563 people for each member, each firefighter, and St Mary's in Southampton comes up with 6,500. So we're actually covering more people for that being the largest fire station, but with one extra person above St Mary's. Personally, I think that in Southsea, we're going to be looking at everything anyway. That is part of what our excellent officers, and I must commend them on the consultation. It is probably the best I have ever known in local government in over 30 years, where they've really listened and gone forward. They're going to be looking at this anyway. It's not delaying anything because they will be looking at it, as will, as you said yourself, Mr. Chairman, the relevant committee, the Performance and Review Committee over the next 3 years. So to ask that this is looked at immediately doesn't actually take much away from what we should be doing anyway. So on those grounds, I believe we should support it. And indeed, I would welcome the opportunity that this gives to ask Portsmouth City Council if they actually have a view. Because virtually every council has responded saying what they think about their local changes, except for Portsmouth, and it seems rather silly to me for them not to at least be given another opportunity to say what they think should be happening in their city.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson. I think Portsmouth City Council did express their view. They had a debate last week or whenever it was and took a vote. I've now got Councillor McIntosh.
Thank you, Chairman. Having been in this authority for some 15 years, this consultation process is the longest, the most comprehensive and probably the most expensive I've ever encountered. Having listened very carefully to the Chief and Neil Oden this morning, I'm convinced that should there be any requirement for monitoring adjustments to any particular station, that will take place. So I see no reason whatsoever to change what's on the paper today just to have another look at another station. Because we could, in theory, look at all the stations. We could all stand up and look at all our stations and put in little amendments. I think it was well intended, but I think we should vote against, or I will vote against it on that basis. Thank you.
Right. Do I have anybody else? I've got Councillor Smith, but are you speaking as the seconder for the motion now? You are? Right. Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. If I could clarify something, and I'll just turn this microphone away from the speaker behind me slightly. Sorry for the feedback. The amendment seems vague because we have not applied a financial variation to the risk review proposals, which we could state in our amendment and thus specify exactly what we want, and thus what we want has to be in narrative form. I thank Councillor Stubbs for speaking very well as a member of this fire authority in a completely dispassionate way. I wish to speak about the views and feelings of Portsmouth residents. This consultation has been excellently run. The proposals for the 3 sizes of vehicles will improve response times and public safety. Activity-based crewing is a modern and appropriate scheme. None of this makes the people of Portsmouth feel more safe in their response to petitions and the consultation over these proposed changes. I think the one thing that would secure most people's feeling of safety would be continuing to full-time crew the ALP. Councillor Stubbs has pointed out the statistics, and that notwithstanding, people feel less safe. I believe part of the work of this fire authority is not just to make people actually safe, but to make them feel safe. And that, I think, encapsulates the changes we would like to see. I think I will leave it there. Thank you, Chairman.
Right, thank you. Do I have anybody else who wishes to speak? Councillor Burgess.
Thank you, Chairman. I note that they have, Southsea at the moment have 3 vehicles, and they will still have 3 vehicles under the final proposal. 16 crew can man all 3 appliances and the HP. There's no need to have specialised people for the HP. They can rotate amongst the operational crew that are there when they're trained up. I think this is a proper way to do it. Thank you.
Do I have anybody else who wishes to speak? Councillor Price, I'll invite you to come back and sum up, but I'm going to invite the Chief Officer to speak.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for the ability to respond to this amendment, which is obviously we would like to do so. I'll make certain points which I said in my initial presentation of the paper. There's been 2.5 years of work looking at all the risks in the county of Hampshire. That examination was of Portsmouth and Southsea as in detail as anywhere else in the county. This is your integrated risk management plan for Hampshire. It is a suite of measures, and if you look in one particular part of the county, you're not looking at in the right way, because it is a response capability for the risks of this county. And to unpick in that way one particular area, I believe you start to unpick the whole philosophy that we have built up and presented to you this morning as your integrated risk management plan. I am confident as your Chief Officer that we have looked at Southsea in as robust a way. I'm confident that we have gone through a consultation and we have listened to the views of our firefighters from that station and the views of Portsmouth residents as we've heard them this morning through the deputation. I come back to the point about clarity of purpose. What we're talking about here is a set of recommendations which will be clear for me moving forward and clear for the staff of my service and also for Southsea Fire Station. I do come back to the point though that we're talking here about the deployment, and the deployment is we are going to learn through the implementation. And as we have said, the Performance and Review Committee plays a role for you as part of the authority in examining the implementation of this. And if we see at any point, not let alone Southsea, at any point through the county, an area where through the implementation we feel we may need further adjustments, we will bring that back to the Performance Review Committee. But if we agree, or if you agree this amendment this morning, I don't think in 3 months' time when we come back here, the risks or the assessment of those risks or the capability for that part of the county will have changed. So give us the clarity, allow us to progress the implementation, and give us the authority to come back to the Performance and Review Committee and ensure you of the implementation of these proposals across the county as well as Portsmouth. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chief Officer. Right, Councillor Price, would you like to just summarise your amendment then?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I hear what the Chief says. One isn't trying to unpick the whole thing. One is trying to be totally and utterly sure that what is being suggested for Southsea is right. Now, Councillor Stubbs did pick on the point about the ALP only being used, I think he said 15 times in 2015. If you look back at the 3 preceding years, it was 45, 47 and 50. So it was much higher than the one figure that he used. So also the ALP, and that was deployed within the South Sea area. Now, the ALP can get deployed outside of Portsmouth as well. So that takes firefighters away from the Portsmouth area. All I want to try and achieve here is to get our officers who are excellent and have done a good job. I'm not criticising them in any way, but I want them to take a final look at the South Sea situation. Have they got it right? Because the residents of South Sea do not appear to understand or accept that they are totally and utterly covered. And I just want that to be looked at to be totally sure, and then to come back, not to look at all of the rest. I'm not picking on stations. I don't want to look at any other station, because most of the other issues have been covered by the amendments from the original proposal to the proposals that are now before us. It's this one station that stands out, it shouts at you almost, is the one that has not been changed at all. And therefore, we need to be totally sure that it is right in the recommendations there. I'm just asking to be re-looked at, and I hope that members of the Fire Authority will support that.
Right. Thank you, Councillor Price. I don't think I have any other speakers on this amendment, so I know we'll put that to the vote. So, Kevin, are you going to check? So, what I would wish, please, all those in favour of this amendment to please show. And all those against, please.
Count quicker.
Come on.
Maybe an abstention.
16. Any abstentions? No. That didn't quite add up, but I think you realise that that amendment was not carried by, I think, 16 votes to 7. I think we've got 24 members here. So
Will you both count it?
were we both counted here?
Yeah.
Well,
I'm doing reading 17 first.
Sorry?
The amendment was not carried. What I would just reiterate is that this is the Hampshire Fire Authority covering the whole of Hampshire. We are a combined authority comprising Hampshire County Council, Portsmouth and Southampton cities. And we as authority members have a strategic responsibility to deal with the whole of Hampshire. And South Sea, Portsmouth is just a part of that. And we've looked carefully at these proposals over months, years, and the chief and the other officers will tell us that from the strategic point of view, the fire service is constantly supporting itself. So when there is an incident somewhere, appliances are strategically moved as a backup, and that's something that is constantly going on, probably every day of the week. So, and as has been indicated, the proposals that we have before us will be under almost permanent review. I think it's probably going to become a standing item on the performance review. I think I'm right there.
Well, it will be.
It will be a standing item.
I'll be chair.
Yeah, it will be a standing item. So we will constantly be reviewing what is happening, and if there is indication of some enhanced risk profile at Southsea, then clearly we're going to look at it. We clearly note the concerns that have come forward from Southsea, and we will take those into account. Right, thank you. I think I'm back with Councillor Smith.
Chairman, as a procedural matter, could I request that recommendations 1 and 2 be taken separate votes?
Well, yes, I think there will be separate votes, yes. Yeah. Right, we, seems a long time ago now, but we are still in debate on risk review. So I think I had Councillor Burgess indicating.
Thank you, Chairman. September last year, the 23rd of September, I was asked to attend a meeting at Gosport Fire Station, as with you, Chairman, where after the standard welcome of a steaming mug of tea and introductions, the Watch Commander of Red Watch, Rob Dello, gave a very professional presentation, PowerPoint presentation, of Gosport's proposed responses to the proposed risk review. Now, we listened to that in depth. It was full, it was costed, there were questions from both sides. I asked Rob Dello to forward me the presentation that evening, which he did. I then forwarded it to the risk review team, and they have acted on it, and I'm pleased to say that the present or the level of the final proposal is acceptable to Gosport. Now, I also attended the Gosport consultation at the Thorngate Halls, which was, I think, the most attended one, largely because of scurrilous leaflets which have gone about indicating that Gosport Fire Station may be closing, which had been denied by senior officers. And yesterday, I rang the station because of the fire that was in Albert Street, yesterday in Gosport, and talked to Rob Dello. His first comment was that he was disappointed he'd missed the fire in Albert Road because he missed the shout. But he went on to say that with having 22 firefighters at Gosport, they were really pleased with what they've got, and they can cover all contingencies and at an increased response time. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Burgess. Perhaps I can just add that, yes, the meeting at Gosport was well attended. It was the last one of the process, and it was an extra one because it was a meeting that I specifically asked for as a Gosport member. And I attended all the meetings, and we saw the meetings get progressively greater and greater attended, and it was a well-attended meeting. But just to reiterate again, we started the consultation on a concept, and within that, we invited ideas to come forward from firefighters, and they, as we've already acknowledged, came up with some very valid ideas, and they have taken ownership of those ideas, which is really what this is all about. Okay, Councillor Fuller.
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, I'd like to add my thanks to all the staff for the hard work that's gone into the creation of the risk review over the last 2.5 years, and also to all those who have engaged in the consultation late last year. I think there was over 750 inputs to the consultation and something like 30,000 hits on the website, which is really quite incredible. I'd like to welcome the changes to Hightown Fire Station from the original consultation to the proposal before us today. Having met with firefighters at Hightown late last year, it was clear they had significant concerns about the original proposals, and it is really, really great to see that they have gotten him on board with the consultation, they've engaged, and they have come up with a proposal that they are comfortable with, and senior staff here are comfortable with as well. I think it really typifies just how good I see the engagement of Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service in my 10 months on this authority, I think it's really, really good to see engagement 14, 15, 2.5 years of really talking to the people on the front line about how these proposals will affect them and what things they think they need to do their job. So I think that engagement is brilliant. And again, the consultation, the fact we've gone out there with a number of proposals, come back with a final proposal, which is in many cases remarkably different from the original, is fantastic. And actually, I agree, and I think it's probably one of the best consultations I've seen in my time in local government, which is not quite as long as many members on this panel, but it's a number of years nonetheless. Having listened to everything that's been said so far today and having read the paperwork and been engaged with this for a number of months, the risk review, in my opinion, is allowing Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service to really respond to the changing environment in the fire service and to take advantage of new methods and new technologies to really ensure that they are the very best they can be. Fire and Rescue Service is about managing risk and not completely eliminating it, because that's simply impossible. And in my view, the proposals before us today really do match resource to risk in a way that is accurate and right. Taken as a whole, I also think the risk review proposals will support Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service's aim in making both firefighters and members of the public safer through new methods such as SAVE, new technologies that are proven but just not in use in Hampshire, such as the cold cut technology, and through improved response times, which are remarkably improved in this proposal. I, for one, am confident that in the proposal before us, the thorough nature of the process involved in coming to this point, the robust analysis and engagement with staff and data, and of course actually the recommendations of the senior officer team here, I think, carry massive weight, considering they've all started as firefighters, and I am confident that they would not put any proposals before us that would put lives at risk. Also, sort of given confidence by the fact that we will be reviewing this constantly. You know, this is going to take several years to roll out, and it will be coming back before committee here, and I'm sure for full authority, allowing us to deal with any problems that may occur and tweak the proposals where necessary. So sort of in conclusion, I think the proposals before us are the next step, as Dave said, in the evolution of the Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service, and will allow Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service to remain at the pinnacle of firefighting, not just in the UK, but hopefully in the world.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. Now I've got Councillor Carew, please.
Members, you've heard it from our officers. Hampshire Fire and Rescue Authority and Service is one of the best in the country, if not the world. And our senior officers have staked their professional reputations that these comprehensive plans will ensure that that service improves even further. We all know there is immense pressure on local government and emergency services, and we've heard today from our Chief Officer, Dave Curry, that these efficiencies will save £4 million. Yet we have ensured that there will be no redundancies and no station closures. These changes are designed to ensure greater flexibility, new working practices, and cutting-edge technology required for a modern firefighting service. In the words of our officers, they are designed to make Hampshire even safer. Knowing the dedication of our officers, do you really think that they would agree to anything that would endanger the safety of our residents? Of course not, and nor would we. It is not necessary to send out an enormous fully crewed fire engine at great expense to our taxpayers to deal with a small grass fire when it can be dealt with 2 officers and a Land Rover. This whole consultation process has been exemplary. It has involved all members, the unions, and perhaps most importantly of all, the public and the staff at our fire stations. We have all had the opportunity to grill staff over these proposals and plenty of time to secure amendments. The key issue to remember is that all these changes and improvements have been carefully considered over the last 2.5 years, and they will be monitored. Given the years of work by everyone concerned, it would be wrong for a disagreement over one area of Hampshire to hold up the process for the rest of our county. It would be unfair on our officers and the residents we serve. Apart from the issue of Southsea, we seem to have a great deal of cross-party unanimity and agreement. And given our Chief Officer's promise of built-in monitoring, I hope that we can all move forward and support the proposals that are set before us today. What we decide today will lay the foundation of how we operate over the next decade. And members, I hope, like me, you will fully support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carew, for those perceptive comments as we move forward as a fire authority. Councillor Wall, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm from Farnborough, and it's a bit like trying to follow Hilary Benn, isn't it? Anyway, Chairman, what we have here, as far as I'm concerned, is a success. And that's because the proposals have changed, and quite significantly, from what we approved for consultation last autumn. I was always of the view that there would be changes, although I didn't know what they would be. Now, that the proposals before us are delivering £500,000 less savings than originally anticipated is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to look closely at the back office again, and also to encourage those involved in the governance review to look very carefully at this authority and really squeeze the pips. How many councillors and meetings do we now need? Chairman, I believe that there are some pips in this authority that need to squeak. Eyesight's not very good. I want to pay particular tribute to those stations around the county that have actively engaged with the review. I'm very proud to have Rushmore in my area, and Andy Bowers stole some of my thunder earlier. Now, when Paul Robson claimed that he and his team could provide better cover at a lower cost than that proposed in the consultation, I wasn't sure whether it was Christmas coming early or the 1st of April. But it survived the scrutiny and is in the document before us. Now, Chairman, we have an exciting time ahead of us. Only recently I was privileged to visit the equipment tour at Rushmore, along with Councillor Chadd and Councillor Bennison, and I'm sorry that Councillor Bennison is unable to be with us today. And I was very impressed with what I saw. Things like battery-powered tools and battery-powered LED floodlights. Less space required, no trailing cables, no trip hazards. The more I learn about the ultra-high pressure Lance, the more impressed I am, and the sooner we can get it into service, the better. It isn't a universal panacea, Chairman, but anything that improves the environment we ask our firefighters to go into has to be good news. In my area, which has narrow streets full of parked cars, smaller vehicles packed full of the latest technology will be very welcome. Now, Chairman, we've shown that we'll listen to the stations and crews. It's now time to throw down the gauntlet regarding the new vehicles. Their input is not only wanted, but absolutely essential. And, Chairman, I think they're up for it. Now, unfortunately, the media only tend to be interested in the negative, and the total number of service employees will reduce. But we already have unfilled posts, and we have had for a long time. We have to recruit 50 firefighters over the next year or so, and they will be joining a financially sound, forward-looking organisation that's investing in the latest technology. They will have the opportunity to help shape the future direction of this service, and they may well be the leaders of the future. And quite honestly, Chairman, I think perhaps if I was of that sort of age, I might be looking to be one of them. I support the proposals and hope that everybody else will. Thank you, Will. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Councillor Wall. I don't know if we want to see you as a firefighter.
I'll take the names.
I'm sorry to say, John, I don't think you'd pass the eye test. I know I wouldn't. Right, Councillor Simpson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, I received an email from Councillor Benison at 7:30 this morning saying that he's damaged his cornea in an accident and he's been in A&E all night. He is, in his words, extremely disappointed that he's not here. He would have supported this if he had been here. Together, we went to all of the fire stations in Hart, and indeed, he also went to the Farnborough station, which I couldn't make through illness. I won't say that everybody in Hart is happy, but I will say they're all content. And they're content that they have been listened to and that changes have been made. Clearly, you're never going to make everybody happy in anything, but I think our officers have done a great job. I believe Hart will be safeguarded, as will Rushmore, with the excellent scheme put forward by the firefighters themselves. So I'm going to support this. I believe everybody in here probably will support it because it is a good document. It has been well put together by the officers, and we should be congratulating them again and again and again on the work they've been doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't think I'll try and match the sort of tub-thumping passion that Councillor Carew gave us earlier on. I think it's probably too cold for that, apart from anything else. And I don't operate very well in these cold temperatures, and my heart goes out to the officers who are there in their shirt sleeves. So if there's one change I'd like to make is it's slightly warmer facilities for us to operate in, but that's being selfish. Chairman, consultations undertaken by local authorities are usually characterised by going through the motions. But I'm actually quite proud of this organisation that we carried out a consultation in the manner it should have been done. And I think, as other members have mentioned this morning, very clearly we have listened and we have made changes along the way. And I think what we've got to is the sort of consensus that perhaps is typified by the European Union, dare I say. And it's good to have got to this long stage, but as again the point has been made, this isn't the end of the story, it's really the beginning of the story, because it's so important that we monitor the impact that these changes have made, and that we make sure that we continue to match our facilities with the risk that's out there. So, Chairman, I am going to support the recommendations, along with what I suspect will be the majority of other members.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. I now move to Councillor Spicer, please, at the back row there.
Yep, thank you, Chairman. Firstly, I would like to say I'm elected by Southampton City residents, and it's why I'm standing here today representing them. Councillors should be reminded from time to time that residents' concern are our priorities as we are elected by them. The more and more I went to public meetings and other meetings and listened to the concerns, Hightown always came up. And the more I knew something had to be done for an alternative outcome. And yes, sometimes you have to play with fire sometimes, pardon the pun, and put your neck on the line, but not once had I predetermined the outcome. Hightown was a step too far as I was concerned in the reduction in nighttime cover. Only at the weekend, Hightown went to a pub fire in Curdridge in the early hours. The proposals before the changes would have left Hightown with no cover at night if there was a fire in the east of the city. If the Southampton Labour Group hadn't done what it did, working with watchers and unions, I believe the Hightown proposals would have not had a U-turn. Cuts to public services never sits well with me, and what this Tory government is doing to our public services. However, the report, I believe, will make rural parts of Hampshire safer. The surprise bonus in the final report is Redbridge is to get the high pressure lance and a first response vehicle, which is great news for the city. I shall now be supporting the documents. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Now, Councillor Frankham, please.
Thank you. I came to the meeting with a completely open mind. I really didn't know which way I was going to go. I wanted to completely listen to the evidence. During all my many meetings in Basingstoke and here, plus demonstrations, I'm not quite sure that my question on the extra workload caused by the assistance to police and medical needs was fully answered. However, as there is the provision to update and change as needs are evidenced over the next 3 years, and that having an enhanced availability to increase safety with less stations being offline, I now support the continuation of the journey towards a safer Hampshire in the knowledge that if any change is needed in anywhere, it will be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Frankham. Anybody else? Oh, Councillor Pearce, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Hailing Ireland, we have one way on the island and one way off of the island, and this smaller vehicle will be a real asset, especially in the summer season when the roads are quite often gridlocked. The smaller vehicle will have the capacity to get through far easier, so I do support the recommendation. Up to the hill. Thank you, Chairman.
Good speech, that. Thank you. Councillor Stubbs.
Thank you, Chairman. Obviously, I've made the bulk of the points I wish to make a little earlier in this debate. But there was something that Councillor Price said, and sorry to be parochial and make a point about Portsmouth on this, when he talked about the number of call-outs of the area ladder platform. I said 16 when I was speaking. He quoted numbers in the high 40s in previous years, and we're both correct. But why has the number come down? Well, the numbers come down because of a change in policy, so that it had been the case that the area ladder platform was automatically deployed with an automatic fire alarm went off in a taller building. Now that is not the case, and that explains the 2/3 drop in the number of call-outs. And it's sort of quite interesting as well, because it illustrates, perhaps it illustrates a wider truth, because no one knew about that. Well, on this side, I suspect the public weren't aware of it. Certainly, I didn't know that. I suspect other members didn't know of that policy change as well. But, it's not something which has had negative consequences. It's not something which has been the end of the world. And yet, had it been something which we'd have gone through a consultation on that policy change, I'm sure we'd have encountered overwhelming opposition to it. And yet, just because it's been done in this way through delegated powers, it's something which nobody's even noticed. And I think we're going to find the same with this. Some years ago, the Copner fire station in Portsmouth was closed. And at the time, it was predicted, it was framed, it was going to be apoplectic, that the world was going to end, that there were going to be horrendous fires. That hasn't worked out like that. The fire service in Portsmouth has been more than able to cope from 2 locations, providing a quality service, and I can't think of any incident where anybody has attributed any let alone loss of life, but any damage, even any additional damage, to not having that 3rd fire station. And so my point really, just to close this debate off, is that we need to look at these things with some perspective. And I am confident that in 5 years' time, looking back at this, we'll see that it was the right thing to do.
Well, thank you, Councillor Stubbs. I'm sorry, you can't quite close the debate off because I have Councillor Mintoff seeking to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. The risk review process has already been going on for quite some while, sort of 2.5 years, and for our senior officers who've been working on it. I am very pleased that the consultation was so thorough, and that although I think most of us in this room recognise that when things go out to consultation from a public body, people say, oh, well, you've already made up your minds. Well, no, we haven't. And I think the fact that there have been changes in the proposals for 8 of our fire stations across the county proves that. As a Southampton City Councillor, I am, of course, delighted that the Hightown proposals for Hightown Fire Station have been modified from what went out to consultation last September. I'm also delighted that we're getting an extra vehicle at Redbridge Fire Station. But I think the crews at both Hightown and also Rushmore, who have worked with our senior officers to come up with alternative proposals, I think they need to be congratulated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mintoff. Well, I will now turn to the Vice Chairman, Councillor Chapman, to say a few perhaps closing remarks to our debate.
I'll probably leave that to you, Chairman, but I think I'll stand up because I actually find it easier to stand up and talk to people than sit down looking through a maze of heads, really. I think the thing I would like to say to you all is I think you've made a fantastic contribution to the debate this morning. And what you're saying proves to me that you have been well briefed and you actually know what it's all about. But I actually believe this is an unbelievably fantastic time for the fire service. Where it's going in the future is absolutely wonderful, I think. When I was driving down the radio was on about cuts to the fire service. I don't look at it that way at all. Even if the government wasn't reducing our grant, we would have to do this anyway. We would have to look at the fire service and say, where is it now? Where is it going in the future? Regardless of financial pressures on us. And this is why we are one of the best fire services in the country. The reason why we're the best is because we're constantly evolving. And who knows what's coming over the horizon in 12 months' time? There might be a different type of lance. I don't know. But what we have to do is respond to the situation we find ourselves in. And we can do that by new technologies, which not only makes fighting fires much, it makes our firefighters a lot safer. And we are involved in so much that we'll be able to help more people in car accidents and everything. So this is, I think, a really, not a negative time, this is really an exciting time for the fire service. I'm saying to you, the way forward is to vote for this now. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman. Yes, you're quite right. We are one of the best fire services in the country, and in order to remain so, we have to embrace new technology, and we have to move forward and make ourselves fit for purpose. Can I remind you what I said in my chairman's announcements when the just from reading it here, when on 5th of January, when it was an announcement that we would move from DCLG to the Home Office, and in making that announcement, they referred to Hampshire as an example of successful collaboration with other blue light services. So we are an exemplar of the way forward, and this is very much part of it. What hasn't been said this morning, and I know it's happening, is other fire services around the country are looking very carefully at what we are doing, and I don't know how many people have been looking at us online, but it could well be that we have other fire services following our debate this morning to follow what is happening. Right, we're moving to a conclusion for item 6 this morning. Can I, before we take our vote, can I thank you all for your participation and engagement this morning. And it just demonstrates your commitment as fire authority members, and I appreciate all your comments, and I think we've been able to demonstrate how seriously we take this decision, this important decision that we're taking today. I had a request that we vote separately on the two recommendations. I'm happy that we do that. I also, earlier on, I had a request from one member that we substitute agrees in the two recommendation for, I think, supports.
Approves.
No, approves.
We always approve something.
Approves, that's right. Can I just have a show of hands that you're all in agreement that we amend agrees to approves? So you all agree? Are you all happy with that? Right, okay. Right. Have I got that right? Approves. Yes. Right.
Keep going, Chair, keep going.
Yeah, it's been a long morning and we're not halfway through yet. Right, so recommendation 2.1, that the Fire Authority approves the revised definitions of activity-based crewing model under section 7.7. All those in favour of that recommendation, please show.
No, again.
Well, I don't need to ask for any against because that was unanimous. Right, recommendation 2.2, that the Fire Authority approves the final proposals for frontline capability and activity-based crewing model as amended following extensive formal consultation as described in section 7, appendix 1. All those in favour?
Councillor Smith, is your hand up or down?
No, he's down.
It's down. 23.
23. Any against? One against. Okay. Thank you, members, for that. I think that does demonstrate our overwhelming support for the proposals that we've just debated at length, and I do sincerely hope that our firefighters and indeed the public who've been watching this debate will be heartened by that decision that we've taken. So that concludes item 6. We now move on to item 7. Budget and precept requirements for 2016-17. And he's been waiting patiently, and I'll invite Rob Carr to present his report.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, good afternoon, members. You'll be pleased to know I don't have a lot to say. Just a couple of points I'd like to draw your attention to. So on page 3 of the report, paragraph 5.2, just making the point there that following the 4-year provisional grant figures that we've had from the government, our overall position to 2019-20 is some 700,000 better than we had previously planned. So in effect, our current medium-term financial strategy of planned increases in council tax each year, plus the savings plans that we've already got in place, take us most of the way to balancing the budget by 2019-20, but we will need to look at some small areas of income generation and savings during the period. Also want to make the point that following the government announcement, our assumptions around council tax increases are in effect now in line with government policy over assumptions for council tax increases across the whole of local government and the public sector. So just turning to paragraph 6.2 and the table that we've got there, that just sets out the fact that we were previously predicting a deficit in the budget for 2016-17 of nearly 5.7 million. What that table sets out for you is how we've managed to close the gap and actually produce a surplus budget of nearly £2 million for next year. Most of that is as a result of the fact that we've managed to implement £5 million worth of our Phase 2 savings plan in effect ahead of time. So effectively we've been able to create a surplus in the budget as a result of that. Before I take questions, Chairman, I do just need to pick up one technical issue, as I would term it. So paragraph 2.8, the recommendations there. Before setting any budget, I do always ask for the final budget figures to be re-looked at, and as a result of that, we have picked up a couple of rounding errors in the Band C council tax, which reads 5565 should be 5564, and for the Band G, the 10434 should read 10433. So when you come to vote on those, it's an important penny in this context. So when you come to vote on those, I'd appreciate if you take those amendments into account. So sorry for that error, Chairman, but happy to take any questions.
Fine. Thank you, Rob. Do we have any questions, please, members? No? Anybody wish to debate this item? Councillor Price?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I just ask, before I say what I want to say in the debate, is under the recommendations 2.1, I'm assuming that is any subsequent minor changes, because otherwise, if we actually do agree to that, it does give the Chief Financial Officer and the Chairman carte blanche to change the whole budget if they wish to do so. And the intention is that where, like has just been said, odd figures have changed. I think the idea of that recommendation is to change things like that. Am I correct, first of all?
Well, Councillor Price, I think Rob may correct me, but I think that may well have been written when we weren't quite sure of the settlement.
It is specifically for technical changes. So obviously a lot of the information that we use comes from district councils in terms of tax bases, etc. And whilst we wouldn't expect those to change at this time, we just have that in just so that we have the ability to change the budget without having to come back to the full authority.
Mr. Chairman, therefore change the wording slightly. Obviously use the word technical or minor, because otherwise members will be giving a carte blanche otherwise for the officers to do that. But having said that, we will come to the recommendations later on. What I would like to say that I'm pleased that we are now increasing the 1.99%, and through the consultation with the risk review, the public seemed to support us on that, and a large number of the public also wanted to see us go much further than that because they valued the service which is being provided. I think it's a great pity that central government a few years ago allowed some fire authorities to increase up to £5 if they'd wished to do so, and some did take that up and do it. Now, I think it's a great pity that has now been stopped and that we couldn't do it this time, because I think it would have been much better to have increased to the £5. That represents on a Band D property 38p extra per month to a taxpayer, and I think that would have been very much more helpful to us. I think that it is wrong that the central government, or the Conservative central government, is continually reducing grant aid to the emergency services. Emergency service, as we all know, is not the same as a local authority. They can control what they do and how they do it and when they do it. We never know when that emergency is going to come, when it's going to happen. And therefore, I think the country is on high alert at the moment, and we only look at the unfortunate incident which the chairman mentioned where Hampshire's involved last night, is that going to Didcot is that you never know when that sort of thing is going to happen, and even bigger. So we were taken outside of the county. We as an authority have taken many steps to actually either increase income or reduce costs, with 3S Fire, 3H backroom working. with the police, with our joint HQ, and in other stations as well. All of that does help us to reduce our budget, but I think it is unhelpful, and I emphasise this point, of the government continually reducing the grant aid to us. The budget has gone through finance and general purposes when I supported it and therefore will support again this morning. And the point that I would make is that with our committee system, it is very good that the budget can be really examined by the Finance Committee rather than having an executive member making the decision and only one person being involved. So I support the budget, and I hope that all members will also do the same. We've had a good debate through finance and general purposes, and it is the right budget for us going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Price. You alluded to the incident yesterday at Didcot, which we will hear a bit more about shortly. But that, of course, is our USAR team that were deployed, and that is part of the National Resilience Grant. So that's not part of this. Can I just clarify with Rob? If I don't have any real problem with changing subsequent to technical, is that what you were asking for? Technical changes?
Well, that was the word which Rob used.
Quite happy with technical, minor technical, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, we're content with amending subsequent. Any other speakers? Councillor Harrison, please.
Yes, I just wanted to endorse the point that Councillor Price has made about the advantages of having a committee system over a cabinet system. When I think about all the argy-bargy, the long days of argument at the budget-setting meetings, especially at Hampshire County Council, it comes about because the decision-making powers rest there with just a few elite members. And I'm very pleased that we don't operate that system here. We have the opportunity as members all to have an input and a say long before we get to these full authority meetings. And as a result, everybody has had a chance to participate. And sometimes there are disagreements at committee level, but they're all ironed out. And I think this is a much, much better way of going forward. And I hope the members from Hampshire County Council who agree with me on this will support my proposals in another place.
I won't be, so...
Right. I don't think that's got an awful lot to do with this budget debate.
Forgive me, Chairman, I'm out of order once again.
Yes. Right. So, any other speakers? No? Right. So, with the... You have... how many? You've got 11 recommendations. So, we're agreed that we're going to check 2.1, we're going to change subsequent to technical or minor. Is that agreed? Agreed. And then, and it is important, although it's only a penny, on 2.8, band C is 55.64 and band G is 104.33. All got that? So, Councillor Carew wants to ask a question.
Just a point of order, Chairman. Once you've finished doing this, could I move that we take all of these recommendations in one hit, please?
I'm just coming to that. Yes, thank you. Yeah.
We're with you.
You've got 11 recommendations. If you're content with all of them, can I have a show of hands to accept all those recommendations? Thank you very much. Item 7 is carried. So we now move swiftly on to item 8, which is your activity report. And before we come to that, or before we take that paper, I'll ask for an update on what has happened at Didcot. which will be Steve Foy.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, brief update for you regarding Didcot. You'll be aware there was an incident that started there yesterday around about 4 o'clock in the afternoon involving an industrial building that was previously decommissioned. It's an Oxfordshire Fire and Rescue Service incident. However, there are a number of services supporting Oxfordshire, including West Midlands, Merseyside, Buckinghamshire, Essex, South Wales, and of course ourselves. We currently, initially we had 2 search and rescue dogs deployed with their handlers, a urban search and rescue advisor, and module 2 of our urban search and rescue capability, which carries a range of equipment for heavy lifting, moving and hot cutting. We continue to have resources there. We will continue to maintain support for Oxfordshire in any way they need. Our colleagues in Oxfordshire have confirmed this is likely to be a long and protracted incident and take some time. It's a significant incident and will take some considerable time for resolution. And clearly our thoughts remain with the victims of that incident, those that are still missing and their families.
Right, thank you for that update, Steve. Right, members, this is your opportunity to ask questions on the activity report. My attention has been drawn to page 22. If you want to look at that, you've got a very fine photograph there of Lily, the dog that was rescued from a well. Anyway, questions on the activity report? Councillor Price, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. The only comment I wish to make is under page 7, 2.4, fire investigation. I'm very pleased to see that we've been able to present good cases to the courts, and the courts have imposed lengthy custodial sentences for those who cause arson.
Just respond to that, and thank you. We continue to do some really good work in fire investigation. We were pleased actually to host Lady Louisa Portal, the High Sheriff, just recently in her role in looking at enforcement, and she spent a morning with us and equally complimented us on our fire investigation and arson particularly, and our conviction rates. So I think she also identified that contribution that we make. I think Steve's covered. Thank you, Chairman.
Any other comments on the activity report?
No, move on quick.
No? Okay, well, can I thank the officers for that, and we obviously accept that report. So now we move on to our minutes of our meetings. Can I invite Councillor McIntosh to present the minutes of Standards and Governance Committee?
Yes, I'm happy to present the minutes, Chairman, and take any questions. But I would like to pass a comment on the auditors and thank them for their hard work throughout the year. Their contribution has been extensive, makes our meetings very easy and very professional, and I'd like to thank them personally. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'd very much like to endorse those comments that you made there. It's just been pointed out to me that I've missed out in an item on the agenda.
Members' questions.
So, having taken item 10, we'll now move back to item 9, which is members' questions and development. Has anybody been anywhere, attended any conference or seminar? Anything anybody would wish to report? Councillor Wall.
Can it wait till next time?
Councillor Wall.
Yeah, the only thing I attended, Chairman, which I referred to in the risk review debate, was the equipment tour up at Rushmore. I'm not sure how many of the almost 24 of us actually got to see that in some part of the county, but I think Chad will probably confirm that as a fully paid up geek I didn't want to leave. I was enjoying the technology so much, and she virtually had to drag me away. But the technology that is coming, Chairman, we all ought to be aware of it. And had you been there with me, I would have been sort of urging you to sign the cheque there and then.
Thank you, Councillor Wall, for that. I attended a similar event at Winchester with Councillor Price, and it was a superb evening. I have spoken to the Chief to see if we can put on something for all members. That might be slightly difficult because Roger Price and I were there for over 3 hours. But actually, we needed to be there for that time to encompass all that was on display there. And it was really 3 hours well worth spent. It was excellent. Can I just make a point? Yes.
Just to say that we received some welcome and thanks from our own staff as well, which was primarily that tour of 4 events around the county in January and February. We intend to do that in the autumn, and we'll make sure that you're aware of those events and where they're happening. I think our staff find it very useful engaging with yourselves in terms of seeing that equipment and that technology. But in the awareness session after lunch, we are going to demonstrate some of that technology which fits behind the SAVE model. And I think you'll see an element of what we demonstrated in that equipment tour for those that you didn't make at those events. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Price, yes.
Chairman, can I just concur with your comments, but also to say some of the equipment is behind us today. I mean...
Councillor Fuller, thank you.
Just a quick one to say, I had the privilege of spending a watch with Red Watch at St Mary's in December, which was a really good day. And I would recommend spending a day with a watch with any of the authority members just to see how the day-to-day running of the firefighters on the ground works. Did some training on the ALP, sort of inside, and got up in it, which is incredible views of Southampton. I went on a couple of shouts as well, so it was really interesting.
Well, thank you for that. I wasn't aware that you'd done that, and well done for doing so. It enables me to sort of reiterate how important it is for all of us to engage when we're able to with our local fire stations. So well done, David, for doing that. Any other comments? Councillor Smith, yes, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yesterday I attended a meeting of Portsmouth's Health Overview and Scrutiny panel. And our head of adult social services asked me to pass on his thanks to the fire service for the work they do in helping keep vulnerable people safe in the city. So I reported back to him about our targeting of home fire safety visits, etc., and fire officers' excellent awareness of how to alert social services to risks that they come across. Thank you, Chair.
Fine. Thank you very much for that. Right, I think that's completed that item then. So we can now move to, I think is item 12 on your agenda, which is the minutes of performance review and scrutiny. And I will invite Councillor Chapman to present his report for the last time.
Well, thank you very much for that. That sort of makes an assumption that some people might vote for me for the chairman of Canning Council. I wouldn't say, it's in the bag, to be fair. I'd never take things like that for granted. But I'm happy to present these minutes we report. There's no recommendations to the authority. Thank you very much.
Any questions for Councillor Chapman? No? Okay, thank you. We now move to the minutes of Human Resources, and I will invite Councillor Fairhurst to present those minutes, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Happy to present the minutes of the HR Committee, and I'd like to draw members' attention to 117, where we're recommending to the Hampshire Fire and Rescue Authority that the pay policy statement be approved. And we would ask members to note about the implementation of the national living wage and the implementation of the 95,000 cap on exit payments. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for that. And finally, we move to the minutes of...
We need to go vote on that.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Sorry, it's been a long day. We need to take a vote on that recommendation.
Yeah.
So it's paragraph 117. Is everybody agreed with that?
Agreed. Yeah.
Thank you. So moving on to Finance and General Purposes Committee, Councillor Stubbs, who has a number of recommendations. So, Councillor Stubbs, please.
Thank you, Chairman. You have in your pack the minutes from the Finance and General Purposes Committee meeting on the 3rd of February. There are 3 blocks of recommendations, and just to comment on them all quickly. The first set, which you'll see under minutes 129, relates to the use of the authority's logo. This will have no practical effect on how Hampshire operates at this time, as we actually already comply with this policy which we've been asked to adopt, which has been pushed down on us from SFOA, but it is to do with really the contradiction between, on the one hand, not being supposed to use the authority's label on 3S Fire in a way to gain commercial advantage, and on the other hand, a requirement to use the label in order that it's clear that it's part of the fire authority. So it's to resolve that muddle, and we've been asked to adopt the recommendations which form minute 129. Minute 130 makes reference to changes in standing order, contract standing orders, the purposes of which really is to align with, firstly, a European Union policy, also with H3, so that we can just make it simpler to run with the other authorities that are part of that partnership, and some other amendments also form part of that. The final set of recommendations I don't think we need to vote on, which are in 131, which really just relates to the budget and making recommendations towards that, but obviously as we've now voted on that, those no longer apply. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Great. All content with those recommendations?
Content to have it.
Good. Thank you. Right, members, that concludes our meeting at just on 1 o'clock.
Well done.
Lunchtime. Can I take the opportunity to thank you for your contributions this morning? As I think I said earlier, it's particularly important that we did discuss the risk review a proper debate, and I think that we did that, and I hope our firefighters who have been watching, I hope they take comfort from the fact that we take these matters so seriously. Right, well, I said at the start of the meeting it's goodbye to Councillor Chapman and it's goodbye to Councillor Smith. It's also goodbye to the appliance bay, because this is the last time that we will have a meeting here in this format. So you're cheering. I can't exactly tell you when the alterations will be completed here, but they will commence fairly soon. So we will be in temporary accommodation for our next meeting in June and probably the meeting after that. And that will be the county, Hampshire County Council headquarters in Winchester, which perhaps will be slightly more comfortable, but I don't know. But that's where we will meet in June. So thank you all for your attendance this morning. We now move to lunch. And how long is lunch going to be? When are we programmed to start?
As soon as the close of this meeting, so we suggest 1:30. People happy with 1:30?
Can we take half an hour for lunch, and then the scan demonstration is going to be...
if we come back in here, see the save equipment, and then we'll see the demonstration out on the drill yard.
Right, so half an hour for lunch, and then reconvene back in here. Thank you all.
So